This is lecture 4 of the class. Let's begin with the secondary shapes for our spectrum sphere. The purpose of adding these shapes is to introduce dimensionality to the artwork. Spherical shapes have a tendency to bend reflections on their surfaces, and we're going to mimic this effect by creating a few smaller shapes. Start by selecting the pencil tool and sketch a shape similar to what is shown. You can redraw over it to make the shape more streamlined. Using the eyedropper tool, sample the warm gradient from the primary shapes. Then, go to Edit Gradient to adjust the positioning of the points. We want the colors to flow similarly to those in the primary shapes, so adjust the gradient points accordingly. You can always sample colors using the eyedropper tool from the Gradient panel. Once you're satisfied with the arrangement, move on to the next step. With the shape selected, go to Effects Blur, Gaussian Blur. Adjust the blur values to give a smudged effect, but make sure not to lose too much detail. We don't need a stroke on this shape. It seems to be blending nicely with the primary shapes. Next, using the pencil tool, draw another shape. Again, ensure that the path is closed and smooth it out a bit. Use the eyedropper tool to sample the cool gradient. Then, apply the Gaussian blur as we did earlier, adjusting the values until it looks right. Let's create one more shape on the warm section of the sphere. Smooth it out and sample the gradient. Now, press Shift-Control-E to reapply the blur effect with the same settings. While I recommend applying the effect manually to each shape since different shapes may need different blur values, this shortcut can save time if you're confident the same settings are appropriate. Now, I'm experimenting with adding another shape at the bottom. If it turns out well, we'll keep it. Otherwise, we'll remove it. I'll follow the same process as before, creating the shape, refining it, sampling the gradient, adjusting the points, and removing the stroke. For the blur, I'll use the same shortcut to reapply the effect. However, I think this new shape is disrupting the overall flow of the sphere, so I've decided to remove it. We are going to create an elongated shape along the side of the sphere to mimic the natural reflection that occurs on curved surfaces. Just like in real life, light hitting the side of a sphere spreads and stretches due to the curvature and the angle at which the light interacts with the surface. This elongation happens because the light is reflected over a wider area as it wraps around the curve, creating a longer, smoother highlight. We'll replicate this effect by designing an elongated shape along the curvature, which will give our sphere a more realistic and dimensional appearance. What I've done here is create a shape that aligns with the edge of the sphere, smoothed it out, and sampled the white color for it. Now, hold Alt and drag to make a copy of the shape. For the newly copied shape, turn off the stroke, sample a warmer color as shown, and apply a Gaussian blur. The goal is to blend these two shapes together. After adjusting the blur value, shift the warmer shape behind the white one using Control left bracket. Now, select the white shape, turn off its stroke, and reapply the blur effect using Shift Control E. To refine it further, you can make the shape even more slender by increasing its length and smoothing it out. Repeat the same steps for the yellow-colored shape. In the next lecture, we'll finalize the sphere and add a noise effect.